let's talk about Beyond Mamushi. This is a low-budget psychological thriller, and right away that stands out to me. Doing a psychological thriller well on a low budget just seems like it's going to be a tough task to pull off. Most of the time whenever people are sending me low-budget movies to check out, I mean, they're typically horror movies, and it's just one of those things where I feel like you can get away with a little bit more of an amateur feel to a low-budget horror movie, whereas as far as the effects go, the acting and stuff like that, if that's not top notch in a horror movie, people are going to have a lot more leniency typically. Whereas the psychological thriller, it's mostly going to rely on the pacing, the storytelling, the acting, the atmosphere. I feel like there's just so many things that have to go right to make a psychological thriller work. It's one of my favorite genres. It's right up there with horror. So when I realized that that's what I was watching, I didn't look anything up about the movie. I just started watching it. I was really excited to see what we were getting into. One of the things that this movie does really well that I feel like you have to do if you're going to do this style of movie is that it shows and doesn't tell. So you get a lot of visuals. You get a lot of great acting from Karina Jane and Gary Cross. They play the two main characters, Kate and Chris. They're a couple in the movie, and for most of it, we really just get them acting off of each other. And that's one of my favorite things about the movie, was seeing these two act together. So this couple, Kate and Chris, we see that they've recently moved in together, and from what we can tell right away, things are going pretty good. Like, they seem happy. You kind of, I feel like, are cutting back and forth from like moving day, like to when they first get this apartment, until more like current day, you know what I mean? And moving day, everything's great. They're happy. They're kissing each other, hugging each other. It's nice. But then when you get to current day, you kind of see that things aren't going so well. Chris is insanely abusive to Kate, and it's something right away where I feel like if the acting wasn't done so well, this might not have worked for me right off the bat. But just from seeing these two as a couple together, I feel like you're already kind of questioning, like, what's the dynamic here? And I hate having to say that you're judging a book by its cover kind of thing. It sucks to be just by the way these people look. At first I wasn't sure, like, is this like a father and daughter situation? As the movie goes on, obviously you learn that that's not the case, but it looks like there could be like a decent age gap there, and it might just be because of the way these two look, which, you know, it is what it is. But I think it works really well in the movie, because then you see the power dynamic where, like, Chris is mentally abusing Kate. He's also like holding her medication hostage, and right when they introduce medication into the mix, that also brings up the idea that we might be working with an unreliable narrator here, saying that that's always the case. But I feel like in a lot of movies, especially psychological movies, that's going to be a device where it's like you might be seeing one thing, but what's really happening is another. And I think they kind of bounce back and forth with that nicely, where there's some moments throughout where you start to question what's going on with Kate and whether or not she is really, you know, whether or not things are really happening as she's imagining them to. I'll say that. I don't want to give too much away, but right away you're super sympathetic towards Kate, because one of her favorite hobbies is flying a kite. Instantly, as soon as she gets home from flying a kite, Chris guy just fucking grabs that shit and rips it in half in her face, and he's just like, what are you gonna do about it? And he like takes her medication. He's like, oh, you need these because you're having a little panic attack or something. And she's totally flipped out on the wall, you know, like losing it. You don't see any physical abuse. That's another thing that I'm glad they didn't go there. I'm glad they kept it at this like power dynamic, like emotional abuse thing, where it really toes that line, and I feel like brings a sense of realism to this relationship that is, you know, it's kind of refreshing to see, because it's got to be really tempting to bring it to physical abuse, because then you're totally over the line as far as like sympathy goes, and you're like, fuck that guy. I mean, already fuck this guy in the movie anyway, but at the same time, it just makes it that much worse. You know what I mean? So without saying too much, right when you see them move into this apartment, there is a mysterious business card in their closet. It's for a psychologist named Mamushi. Is that right? Mama Mamushi. Mama Mushi. Great name. Rename the movie Mama Mushi. It'll be like, call it Big Mama Mushi and have Tyler Perry in it, actually. How's that for a psychological thriller? That'd be a total mind fuck. Tyler Perry busts out of the closet dressed as a woman. Damn, bitch! You gotta kill your husband. Fuck. Yes. I should be a director. What are we doing here, guys? I need to call Tyler Perry right now. So anyway, with all that being said, I'm not going to get into too much more of it because I don't want to start giving too much away. But, you know, there's clearly the temptation to contact this psychologist and seek out help, seek out advice with her serious relationship problems, obviously. There's a couple other like little things mixed in there with Chris's dad, where there's some drama there that gets pretty dark. There's also this thing that I really like where there's a certain point, you know, like obviously leaving an abusive relationship is nothing easy. Like I feel like it's too simple to just be like, why doesn't she just leave? But there are some clear moments where, at least one clear moment that I remember where you're like, it doesn't seem like Chris would stop her from leaving. You know what I mean? During one of the scenes where she's flipping out, you're kind of like, I think like he doesn't seem like he's going to block the door and like shove her back into the house. You know what I mean? He's almost like inviting her to leave and she's kind of like sticking around. So there's just a lot of really interesting layers to this movie and the idea of watching an abusive relationship unfold, along with this other element sprinkled on top that you might consider it to be a supernatural psychological thriller. I'm going to kind of leave that up in the air as a question because although I feel like maybe the movie's marketed that way, I think if you don't know that going in, it makes it better. So I just ruined that for you guys. So you're welcome. Anyway, like and subscribe. This movie was directed by M.W. Daniels. I was actually really pleasantly surprised. He sent me a DM on Instagram and asked me to check out the movie and do a review of it. So, you know, I'm always willing to do that. Hell yeah, I'm going to check this thing out. The runtime's about 60 minutes, so it's kind of like a medium length movie, I would say. I was looking through some of his other work. He's a writer, director, composer. He wrote and directed this movie. He's also worked on Lizziehead, which was like a made-for-TV movie or a TV film. And I haven't gotten to any of his other pieces of work yet, but I do plan on checking some of them out. I saw that he had a lot of shorts on IMDb that were credited. Keely, October Loner, Everyone Laugh at Leanne, and many more. So I'm excited to check those out. I always love a good horror short. And just from the way this movie looks, it's acted and composed and everything, with all of that considered, I would 100% look into more of this guy's work. I think he has a lot of potential, clearly, especially doing this on a 12,000 euro budget. That kind of blew me away too, just because how great it looks. I don't know, like I haven't looked into the actors in it. So we have Karina Jane, like I said, and Gary Cross. We also have Gemma Thompson, Stephen Atkins, and Kathy Griffiths. The level of acting that these guys are putting out in this movie, it makes me wonder, like, was most of the budget spent on them, or they just happen to be really talented, like, you know, lesser known actors or something like that. Also, just the production. I feel like one of the great things about it is like the coloring and contrast of this movie. It really adds to the mood of it. You really get a sense of like what they're going for, the tone that they're going for throughout the whole movie, which I thought was really great. It's fairly bleak. The pacing was great too. Like I said, with the show don't tell approach, I think is pulled off really well. And I think the pacing lends itself to that, where like right away, you're just kind of swept into the story. And because you're not getting everything out there at once, you're almost just like getting these little clues about what's going on. It leads you to the next scene every time where you're locked in. Is there anything else? Besides all that, I think I'm going to end it on this. I'm not going to talk about this in any detail, but the ending scene is great. The ending scene is fantastic. I feel like it takes all the little clues that you've gotten throughout the movie and wraps them up nicely to this really interesting conclusion that takes a couple turns and a couple twists that are really pretty satisfying, I would say. It kind of just wraps up the whole story nicely, and especially the final scene, I was not expecting. I'll say that. And that's it. So go check out Beyond Mamushi. It's currently playing in festivals, so be on the lookout. Beyond Mamushi by director M.W. Daniels.